part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another Reghi Roda podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. We always give a shout out to our leading man, the man, the myth, the legend, Ty Cordts, making sure all of you out there in the podcastosphere get the R&R podcast on a regular basis. So thank you, Ty and Michael Reghi. 4 weeks are in the books, and your Cleveland Browns have scored 17 points in a game, 18 points in a game, 15 points in a game, 16 points in a game, and their record is now 1-3 following today's 20-16 loss on the road in Las Vegas. Not the start that most people, including myself, were expecting.
Yeah, they're having a difficult time, Kenny, getting the football. It's that old story. They seem to be able to offensively get juice and move it between the 20s. But then, that red zone, that area where you need to make plays and put the football in the end zone, that is becoming an issue now for the Cleveland Browns. And, whether it's another huge drop pass from Amari Cooper, Deshaun Watson maybe. Now, he was under pressure, but maybe taking a couple of sacks when was not the time to do that, maybe throw the football away. And, of course, a defense, Kenny, that they like to run their mouths and tell you they're one of the best in the NFL. But I got on the X today because I was so upset at the second half, missed tackles, lack of, to me, effort when it was needed from that defense. And, you got a squad down 10-0, and come on now. This is the Vegas Raiders, right?
Yep.
This is not one of the best teams in the NFL, but damn, if this defense, again, that likes to talk a hell of a lot, but when it's time to get people on the ground and actually make plays, they don't do that as consistently as they should. And that reared its ugly head today in the Browns' loss.
Mistakes, miscues, missed tackles, missed extra points, right, Reg?
Yes.
Penalties, we'll throw that in there. We always call them the FIPS, fumbles, interceptions, and penalties. They give the coaches the FIPS, right? And the Browns with a number of those. You mentioned Amari Cooper with the drop pass, usually the reliable Dustin Hopkins. You get all the momentum on the scoop and score touchdown in the second half, and it's going to be a 3-point game, 20-17, and he misses the extra point, which forces you then on that final drive to have to go for a touchdown to win the game instead of just a field goal to tie it and maybe force overtime. Deshaun played, I thought, okay.
Okay. Yep.
There were times where he was in a rhythm. It looked good. But then there were other times too where I was like, just throw the ball to the outlet guy. He had a guy on a swing pat, throw the ball there, and he's still not 100% comfortable in this. And I understand with the juggling of the offensive line, and DeJuan Jones was horrific today.
Terrible.
At right tackle. Now, maybe that knee injury is more serious than we know, and he's trying to play through it. But he did not play well, and that got the ire of Deshaun Watson on one pass play where he was pressured when I think he wanted DeJuan to take the outside guy, and he took the inside guy. So there's that bickering going back and forth, and that's never a good sign. So, you look at this team now, 1-3 after 4 weeks, and again, mistakes, miscues, missed tackles, mixed extra points, and you wonder which direction this team is headed.
Not painting a real pretty picture right now. And the next two are against, am I correct, Washington and Philly?
Both on the road, yep.
Oh, they could easily be 1-5, right?
Yes.
Now, you're 1-5, Ken. Good night. That's all. You're not coming back from that. I'm sorry. And they're not doing, even if that happened. No, they're not coming back from that. And they won't be a playoff team. So that's what this is all about. And so they're going to have to find a way again to go on the road and win one of these football games because, again, if you think they're got a real good shot of beating both, Washington and Philly on the road the next 2 weeks. Come on and see me because we can kind of, have fun and make a few plays on that if you'd like, because I don't see that happening. So, here you are, Ken. So let's say they find a way to get a split, and that's going to leave them at what, 2-4? With I don't even, are they playing 16 or 17 games?
17 games, 2-4.
17 games.
That would
with
be
11 to go.
Yeah.
11 to go. So, realistically, if that's the case, and again, but we're speculating that they're going to win one of these next two against Philly and Washington on the road. So at 2-4 with 11 to go, Kenny, honestly, you gotta go. You would have to go 8-3. You would have to go at least 8-3,
just to give yourself a chance, right, Reg?
That's right. Just to give yourself a possible shot. And what I'm seeing now, there's no way in hell they're going to an 11-game stretch and go 8-3. How? How are they going to do that? They have too many breakdown issues at the most critical of times on both sides of the football. Both sides of the football. And so it's not painting a pretty picture going forward. And, I don't know. I don't know if Kevin Stefanski and his coaching staff have the wherewithal to, light some fire under. But Kenny, if it was me, I'd be chewing on some fellas' butts this week if I'm Kevin Stefanski. I'm sorry, man. This kid glove stuff. I know. How do you feel about that? I don't like this kid glove stuff when we're talking about the NFL. I just don't.
Well, we're old school, Reg, right? This is a totally new generation of players, and you're worried about bruising their psyche, their confidence, and also their ego, and how they'll. Let's be honest, okay? One of the things that I thought today when I heard Amari Cooper, because I was driving when Cooper dropped the pass, I was driving home to get home to watch the fourth quarter. They said, it didn't bother him the entire offseason and not getting a new contract and being brought up in trade rumor. I'm sorry. Amari Cooper has not had a good start to the year, and I've got to believe some of that is that whether he wants to admit it or not, or the Browns do or not, there's something to that. He wasn't happy, Michael, and maybe the focus in this Jim Thome term isn't there with him because he still holds a grudge on the front office for the way this offseason went down.
I'm completely with you on that. You said it very, very well. I don't need to add much to it other than to say I'm completely with you. Here's what I'll add. I like Amari Cooper. I've always felt this guy is, one of the top receivers in the NFL. Well, he isn't playing like it.
Nope.
Nowhere close. And like I said, the hell with the kid glove stuff, man. Okay, Amari, you may be mad, you may be frustrated, you may be upset. Listen, man, you are never going to get the money until you start playing way better than you are right now. You're supposed to be a number one receiver in the National Football League. And again, if he is letting this get to him so much that now some of his physical capabilities to route run, get separation, and make catches are waning because of it, well, what the hell makes you think that anybody's going to want to pay you money, man? You got to be the number one receiver on this football team. You got to be a guy that is going to be, close to at least close to, if not 1,000-yard receiver. And Kenny, with him, I'm expecting 7, 8, 9 touchdown catches, right?
Yep.
Well, you're nowhere near that. You're not going to be anywhere near that this year. And if you're not getting that kind of production from your number one receiver, how in the hell are you supposed to sufficiently offensively? You gave the point numbers. Well, that tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah. The Browns came in leading the NFL in drop passes, Michael, with 10 through the first 3 games. I had at least one with Amari Cooper there. And then, Michael, when they do hit a big play for 82 yards and a touchdown, the backup center, Nick Harris, And it was a hold. I saw it from the inside angle and that tug of the jersey with the left hand, not the right. They showed that angle. It was a hold, and you call back an 82-yard touchdown pass when he does hold on to the ball, which could have changed the game completely right there. So again, shooting yourself in the foot, miscues, mistakes, 3 more sacks. Last week it was 8. At least that's down to 3 if you're looking for glass half full. Here's the question I wanted to ask you, hoping you would be able to explain this to me or at least shed a little light on this. Michael, you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. I looked this up to make sure I had this for the R&R podcast tonight. Game 1 against the Dallas Cowboys, Cleveland Browns offense, opening drive, 6 plays, 13 yards, 3:16 on time of possession, score a field goal, they lead 3-0. Game 2 at Jacksonville, opening drive for the Browns, 16 plays, 89 yards, 9:14 time of possession, touchdown, Browns lead 7-0. Against the Giants last week, opening drive, 1 play, 24 yards, touchdown pass in 6 seconds, they lead 7-0. And today, opening drive for the Browns, 15 plays, 70 yards, 9:22 off the clock, touchdown, 7-0 Browns. They have led after their opening drive on offense in all 4 games. And Michael, they have had trouble scoring after that opening drive. Can you explain to me why, when they script it and it's the opening drive, they're fine? After that, they have no clue what they're doing offensively.
It's very difficult to explain, other than to say the scripting is working. And after that, when they go off script, I mean, the offense is nowhere near as productive. But Kenny, that shouldn't be the case now. Right. As we know, virtually every team in the National Football League, and this has been a thing for years, this is what they're doing on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. They're putting together the first 15 for what they hope is, they'd love to have it all in that first drive, 15 plays, touchdown, right, and you probably have the lead. So I wish I did have something to offer that would be at least a potential idea as to why this thing goes south after they script them. But if they come back to the fact then script them all then. I know you can say, well, you can't do that because you don't know game situation, time, score, what have you. But you know what? That's just, it's mind-boggling. It's too big a damn disparity to say that they're able to first drives, they're able to succeed. I mean, even if you want to throw in, the defensive unit on that team on the other sideline from you, they're going to start adjusting.
Right.
Even with that, though, it goes from, again, as you laid out, the strength and positivity of the first drive, putting points on the board, to after that, it doesn't look anything the same. Yeah. And it's a hell of a conundrum they've got, Kenny. And again, I wish I had a definitive answer that could tell you why. But it's perplexing. It's very perplexing.
Is it on Stefanski? Is it on Dorsey? Is it on the offensive unit that's on the field? I'm trying to figure out.
Everybody.
I guess. Okay. All right.
Everybody. Yeah. I mean, and I liked Ken Dorsey, back in his playing days, but Kenny, I'm not real impressed. I'm not real impressed with his title as offensive coordinator. And that's one thing. And the last time I heard Stefanski say anything about that, it said he said it's like a group effort, meaning him and Dorsey. Well, again, after your first drives, fellas, it just isn't working. So, maybe you throw away all the thoughts that you had about what's going to make the Browns offense successful and maybe put the thinking caps on and come up with something else. Because, those point totals that you laid out, I mean, you and I know, right? Let's be honest. Yep. They ain't going to win you a lot of NFL games. It win you here and there. And
Right.
again, that's with a defense that better be all world. And I'll say it again, much of the defense is not all world. They might tell you they are, and they may think they are, but go ahead and look at today's game again. Watch it. Missed tackles, inability to get off blocks. And it was mostly run game that really got them in trouble, right?
Oh, yeah. And the Raiders came in only averaging 2.5 yards a carry or something like that, Michael. And they look
that's
like
changed today.
The 72 Dolphins with Larry
Yep.
Zonka, the late Mercury Morris, rest in peace, and Jim Kick,
Yeah, no, I hear you, and it was I got real frustrated at them, today defensively, and again, I like Jim Schwartz and the DC on this, and I look, I just but what I don't like is when you got this false sense of entitlement, and Kenny, I put it out on the X. I think that's what the Browns have on that defensive unit. Everybody's telling them they're really good in their top five. Well, you didn't play like it today, and you put none of that out there today. And so, to me, I mean, that talking. You and I, as both probably have had coaches in multiple sports that, keep
Yep.
your damn mouth shut, man.
Yep.
You ain't doing nothing, in this case, to get off the field and make plays defensively. You're not securing tackles. You're not breaking up passes. You're not making, as you just said, a run game from your opposition that isn't really good. You're not doing what you should be to keep that a real problem for that team you played today. Instead, you missed tackles. You didn't get off blocks. You broke down in coverages, and there you go. You lose the football game.
Michael, Alexander Madison, Zamir White, DJ Turner, Brock Bowers, Tyleek McAllister, if I'm pronouncing that right, Trey Tucker were the runners today.
That's right.
For the Raiders. And they had some people missing on the O-line, and they had some rookies playing on their O-line.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, you went back to that 72 Dolphins reference. Those guys you just mentioned, Zonka, Morris, and Kick, they are not.
Yes.
So you look, I mean, again, I'll sum this up from my part. You go ahead. I could do a less of hearing a lot less talking from the Browns defense. Or I'll tell you what, people, whomever that may be, whether it's people that cover the team, whether it's internally the team themselves, trying to portray this defense as a top five. Kenny, I'm sorry, not for me. I don't see it. I just went why I don't. And, if people want to contest me on that, go ahead. That's fine. I don't see them as this. Look, to me, top five defenses are, damn well they're going to get off the football field, right?
Yep.
And you sure know no damn run game with those guys you just mentioned is going to eat them up. But that's what we watched today. So I need to see a whole lot more from Jim Schwartz's crew on the field, productively playing, than maybe telling us how great they are defensively. Because I'm done with that BS.
I hear you loud and clear. 14 drop passes as I was Googling it while you were talking, Michael, through 4 games. They led the NFL in drops last year with 39. So they're well on their way to shattering that record from last year, according to CBS Sports. And the sacks are racking up. Watson, completed a high percentage, but he only threw 24 passes for 176 yards, Michael. That's telling me they can't throw the ball down the field because either A, nobody's getting open, or B, he doesn't have time. And then C, when he does, you get a call back for holding. So this offense is one of the worst in the NFL right now. And they've got to figure it out quickly because they're at Washington this week, at Philly the following week, and then they get into division play against the Bengals and the Ravens right after that. So this thing needs to get turned around quickly, Michael, or like you said, it's going to come off the tracks rather quickly, and you won't be able to put it back on.
No, that's right. And then watch all of the bickering going on, as we know what happens, right?
Yep.
We know about in the NFL with teams that are some allegedly playoff teams with a shot to win something of significance. And when it goes bad and it falls off the tracks, the whole fabric starts to pull apart. And I'm sorry, but could I see that happening with this Browns team? Yeah. Yeah, I could, because too many of them have to me, a false sense of their worth and of security about who they are and what they are in the NFL. And again, I mean, so many people can, I think, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
Yep.
I'm going to lay out that, look, does Deshaun Watson, do you want him to excel and play better each and every week? Sure, absolutely. But Kenny, for things he've already went through, if you're putting all of this on Deshaun Watson, offensively, I'm going to tell you, you just don't know and understand football, because he isn't getting a whole lot of help each week. You just went through it. The various breakdowns, all of them. You mentioned all of them today, and they continue each and every week. And when you got that with Watson maybe not playing to what everybody expects and wants of him, but again today, Ken, for that style of game, I thought he played well enough to win. Again, I'm not saying he was excellent,
Right.
but he played well enough to win.
All right.
And it doesn't happen.
All right, let me interject. Here's where I'm going to disagree a little bit. I see other quarterbacks that are considered franchise quarterbacks making players better with the way they're playing, and I don't see Deshaun Watson doing that, even though the talent or the offensive line may not be there. You look at Patrick Mahomes. How many different running backs and wide receivers have they gone through in the last year and 4 games? And yet he makes players around him better. Baker Mayfield. Look at what Baker is doing with the team in Tampa Bay. And, of course, Joe Flacco comes off the bench today, right, for the Indianapolis Colts and beats the Steelers. He throws 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And you saw what Flacco did with similar talent last year, right? So I agree that it's not all on Watson, but for what they're paying him, and his title is franchise quarterback, or supposedly that, I expect him to make the Cedric Tillmans or the Elijah Moores or the Jerry Judys maybe better than Judy made a nice catch over the middle, and I don't know who was doing the game. The broadcast team sucked today.
That was Beth Mowens
and
handling the
analyst
play-by-play.
Yeah. Not a fan, but they showed it in slow motion, and Judy made a nice catch on a ball that was thrown behind him.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So as you've got to lead him so he doesn't have to break stride. Maybe he breaks a tackle. Next thing you know, he takes it the distance. So I need, yes, it's not all Deshaun, but I need him to step up and make everybody around him better. And I don't think he's doing enough of that.
All right. In a perfect world, of course.
Yeah.
That's what you want to happen. This is far from a perfect Browns offensive world right now. I don't like the composition of the offensive line. I just don't. And again, like the kid, I know he's trying hard, but DeJuan Jones has got to be better, Kenny.
Yeah,
he does. Got to be better.
Unless he's just hurt, Reg, and they have no other options, right? And that knee is but with the way that Watson was screaming at him today, right? Yes. In the huddle on that one play, maybe he isn't hurt as much as we think, and he's just not getting the job done. And so Watson had enough and said something. I don't know how that goes over in the locker room, but I'll give you another example of what bothers me about Watson. I saw Patrick Mahomes interviewed after the game. They came back. They beat the Chargers today, 17-10, right?
Right. Yep.
And the question was thrown to him, why have you guys maybe not hit your stride or you're struggling offensively? And he said, look, we got to get better, but I have to get better. He
Yes.
mentioned
Yeah.
himself. Deshaun Watson never says me, I. It's always we. We need to get. He never accepts any of the blame. And for me, that's a lack of leadership right there. Even if it's not his fault, I need a guy to step up and say, hey, yeah, on that, pass play to Judy, I got to lead him on that. Or the one to Tillman last week, maybe if I put it a little higher over the middle, he catches it easier. So I'll work on that.
That's what all the great ones do.
Right.
Yeah.
And he
yeah.
doesn't
I mean, that's
do that,
exactly what the great ones do now. And it's fine. I know for a fact that many times, and it didn't happen often, when the New England Patriots during their run had a clunker. But if they did, Tom Brady stood there and basically said, it's all on me.
Yep.
It's all on me, right?
Yep.
That's what he did. Now, I've been told that, then when he got in the locker room and said, I just took it all for you MFs.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
That's
leadership, right? That's leadership, Michael. And I don't see that from Deshaun. Right. He did it in the middle of the game in the huddle. Now, other quarterbacks have done that. He's not alone, okay? But the good ones, like you said, they fall on the grenade, right? They take one for the team. And then in the locker room, when nobody else is in there, that's where you rip them a new one.
That's what your teammates, yeah.
Yep.
Because they didn't bring it for you the way you needed. But no, that's right. When the cameras are rolling and the lights are on, the great ones take it, put it on themselves, and then they deal with their teammates when they're behind closed doors if they need to let them know you guys are dog crap. And you either start picking it up for me or I'll make it that you aren't on the football field with me anymore. Yep. That's behind closed doors. But yes, the great ones, they take it up front, no doubt about it. And I'm frustrated and disappointed, for the fans because, Kenny, I don't know. Again, hope I'm wrong, but because as we've alluded to, it wouldn't shock me if this thing this year falls off the rails.
Rather quickly, yes.
And we're looking at a 6-7 win football team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I hope I'm dead wrong. Y'all could come back and, Reghi, you were fine. That's cool. I want that to happen. But I'm being honest and realistic about what I'm seeing right now and what could potentially happen to this football team when it severs and shatters and separates. And Kenny, you and I have laid it out there tonight. Don't think that's far-fetched from that happening with a couple of more losses. Because if they're 1-5, Kenny is done, man. And you still got 11 football games to play, right?
Yep.
If they do 1-5, 2-6, 2-7, come on, man. They're not pulling their way and picking themselves up out of that hole. So there's a lot of aggravation going on. Just really is.
Yeah, Reg, how much of this is on Stefanski? And if we're not getting the leadership, from Deshaun Watson that's needed, that Stefanski maybe needs to check things, a little bit and maybe. I don't want to say change his style completely, but like you said, go at some people verbally, at least in the locker room.
Well, that's I think that from all the years we've been together. That's the kind of head coach in the NFL I want.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not saying they're the only ones that could be successful, but, I'm not going to really call what Kevin Stefanski has done in his tenure as the Browns head coach. Are we going to now sit here and anoint him as being a real successful Browns head coach? Based on what?
Well, he's got 2 trophies as coach of the year. That's what, and 2 playoff appearances.
And what happened in those playoff appearances?
I know. Well, he wasn't there and they won. They beat Pittsburgh. He had COVID. Then he comes back. They lose at KC. And then last year they got their doors blown up on the road at Texas. So I understand. Something has to change. Reg, the definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, something's got to change here because the results so far are 1-3, and you haven't scored more than 18 points in a game this year.
Well, and again, I mean, this is breaking it down to its just real core. But you brought it up, and you're 1,000% correct. You're not winning in the NFL, putting up 18 a week.
Yeah,
you're just not. And again, I went after the defense tonight a little bit because I feel they deserve that again. Way too many missed tackles, blown assignments, and allowing people to run free when you can't get them on the ground. No, that's not winning football. That having been said, though, and again, of those points, the defense put 7 of the damn points up today. Did they not?
They did. You're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to take if there was ever, we talk about playing in concert and having every facet of your organization playing well together. Well, I think this team has got to have that over 100% every time they go out, Cam, for them to win. Good day from the defense and crap from the offense. Real good point production. Say they put up 28 or 30 and still get beat because defensively they're dog dung. Well, then, again, that's not winning football, playing in concert. And we've really yet to see that from this football team.
That's a great point, Michael. And before we get to a break here, I got a text from a former Cleveland Browns player who watched the game today and just sent me a video clip of Deshaun Watson yelling at DeJuan Jones, and also Jameis Winston getting after somebody on the sidelines today too.
Yes, that's right.
That does not bode well, and that splintering that you talked about earlier could be happening sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it could, and that's unfortunate. And because this is a 17-game season, only 4 games in, but because they're what? They're on the brink of disaster, and the season going up in flames. And that's what we're trying to point out. It's got to get taken care of now, whatever it takes. And Ken, we didn't see a lot of it. They came back to it, on the telecast today, but Jameis Winston was going after the offensive line.
Yep.
And, but look, he's a veteran. He's a leader. And I guess he felt, well, you know what? If nobody else is going to try to light a fire under these damn guys, then I'm going to do it. And yes, he did. He looked like he was having and there were a couple of defensive players that were trying to keep Winston away from the O-line. I mean, listen, man, if that man's got something, what did you sign him for as your backup quarterback? Whether you like the guy, I think he's a good quarterback, but he's a veteran, right? That started a lot of NFL games. And I think if he wants to go after somebody, I think he's got the right to do that.
But should he, like Watson, wait till the locker room, though? So it's not on Twitter now and it has 96,000 views.
The perfect world, yes.
Right? Wait till you get to the locker room.
That's right.
Unless it's the second. I don't know. I watched the first half, was driving, so.
Oh, this was second half.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
second half.
There's obviously a lack of leadership and issues. And you know what? Let's do this. I want you to think about this while we go to break. And then when we come back, you can address it. Is this an Andrew Berry problem? By not addressing the offensive line the way he should have this offseason, knowing he had 2 guys coming back from serious knee injuries. And so far, Conklin and Wills have played a combined, 2 quarters, I think, from Jed Wills, and that's it. Let it marinate, Michael. Let it marinate. We'll get a break in on the R&R podcast, and when we come back, you can dive into that, and we'll look ahead to next week's game at Washington for the Browns.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tyvis Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tyvis, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And we continue with the R&R podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. The Browns a loser in Las Vegas. They didn't hit the jackpot. They came up craps 20-16 the final. They are now 1-3 on the year. In the offensive line, a major problem again today. Deshaun Watson played okay, but not good enough to win, in my opinion. But I want to go back to that O-line, Michael. No Jack Conklin so far this year. Jed Wills has played in a half a game. You've lost... who is it that they've lost on the offensive? Batonio's still there.
He's still there.
In and out.
Posick is in and out.
Wyatt Teller's on the IR.
Right.
So we were talking about this on the Kenny and JT show on WHBC. Should they have addressed the offensive line issue more with depth in the offseason, knowing that two key cogs of it were coming back from serious knee injuries, and they didn't know exactly when those guys would be back? Should they have gone after some more veteran offensive linemen to help them, Michael, instead of counting on Hudson, who to me is below average to begin with? DeJuan Jones played well at times last year, but he was hurt as well, and he looks to still be somewhat hurt. Is this an Andrew Berry problem, or does Andrew Berry deserve some of the blame for this?
Absolutely does, without doubt. And here's the thing: we have always given Andrew Berry his way to goes and excellent job when things have gone well. Well, listen, man, he's still the guy that composes that roster, is he not?
Yep.
And for the reason you just said, it's to me, a real lack of understanding what's going on with a vital position on your roster, Andrew Berry, the offensive line.
Yeah.
Now, look, we went after Stefanski and Dorsey, and rightfully so. But Andrew Berry has got to be the guy that has foresight, Ken, and to see some of the issues and things that you just brought up that are happening. And listen, the offensive line, I don't care if you talk about a good college hell, if you talk about a good high school program, college program, the NFL, you could make a case it is the bellwether unit of a good football team. Most cases, correct?
Yes.
I mean, it's so important, man. It is just absolutely vital that you have an offensive line that you can count on, have confidence in, believe in, and an offensive line that when things are starting to splinter offensively, in essence, you rely on them and you ride them and you say, we're saddling you up, big fellas. Let's go. Get us out of the abyss. And yeah, come on now. You don't see any of that with this offensive line.
No.
Nowhere
So,
near. Nowhere near. And so, and again, okay. Well, the Conklin, I can hear all the apologists too. Well, the Conklin and Jed Wills injuries are hurting. I'm sorry, but Jack Conklin, man, to me, he's been more MIA than anything else in the last couple of years of his Browns tenure.
It sure has, and they overpaid him. Way overpaid
Way
him
overpaid.
to keep him.
Yes, and Jed Wills, not living up to my thoughts of what he was coming out of Bama, Kenny.
I say it every time we bring him up. I wanted Tristan Wirfs. They went with Jed Wills. As they say, the rest is history. So I think he should have addressed it with some veteran offensive linemen, bring him into camp. You know what? The Guardians do a good job of, Reg. They bring some veterans to camp, right?
Yes.
And let them pitchers and let them, throw in spring training. And what do you know? Well, he went 3-10, which isn't good. He gave them some innings they needed this year in Carlos Carrasco. Find me a veteran offensive lineman like that, right? Where you keep him as that 53rd man just in case something like this happens, because you saw it happen last year and you would think you would have learned from that. And again, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So Andrew Berry, yes, this is on you as well for not having the foresight to look ahead and say, what if these two guys aren't ready for us to go opening day? Do we really believe in Hudson and the rest of the guys that we're going to play there? So I put some of this on Andrew Berry.
Well, I think you have to. Again, roster composition. That's every president of football operations, general managers. That's his main role, to me anyway, Ken.
Yep.
If that is your title and your responsibility and your job, what you do for your football team, then Andrew Berry, he done a lot of good things, but he dropped the ball on the offensive line. And to me, I'll say it again, and I'll argue anybody that says otherwise. That is other than, having your quarterback be one that is a winner. But show me any team without a strong requisite offensive line, strong, where again, if you have to, you can ride them, Kenny, right?
Yeah.
You ride them to go get your wins in fourth quarters. Well, that's not the case with this football team's offensive line. Nowhere near. So yes, I think there's been a lack of a strong response, and that goes right to Andrew Berry for having this offensive line in the shape that it's in right now. Because there's some guys on there you just can't count on.
Yeah.
You just flat out can't count on them.
All right, Reg. Cincinnati got its first win of the season today. Pittsburgh suffered its first loss to Flacco and the Colts. Baltimore is leading Buffalo while we're taping this 21-3 at the half. So even though I don't want to assume that they'll hold on and win, because I thought Alabama up 28-0 the other night against Georgia, that game was over. But let's say Baltimore wins, they get to 500. They're 2-2. Browns 2 games out of first behind Pittsburgh. And they've got the the Washington Commanders next week as Jaden Daniels,
he can play,
the rookie
Kenny.
Quarterback out of LSU, is lighting it up. Yeah. So just your thoughts heading into that game. What has to happen in a week's time to get this thing turned around and try and get a road win at Washington?
Well, all the things we talked about come into play now, but this is, you only got 17 attempts. This isn't Major League Baseball where there's $162 or the NBA where there's 82. 17, man, and you've already gone through 4 of them. So they look, Ken, they've got to win one of the next 2 on the road in D.C. and Philly, and that's to be a 2-4, right?
Yes.
With 11 to go. And then from that point, though, you kind of assess things. But look, I have a feeling that this kind of roster is pretty much what it's going to be for Andrew Berry the rest of the way. And I think he's counting on Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey, the OC, to wave some pixie dust or something to try to get this thing right and get enough wins where come December, Ken, we're still talking about them as having a shot to be a playoff team. But, I mean, other than that, Kenny, I don't have a lot of positives to really back up anything that I'd tell you of great consequence about how I feel strong about this football team. I just
Nor
don't.
should you. Nor should you. There's nothing there for us to hang our hats on and believe it's going to get turned around. And I'll go back to something you said earlier. The season is on the brink of disaster. They lose these next two, and they're 1-5. Stick a fork in them. They're done.
That's over.
Ain't no way they're coming back to win the division or even make a wild card. So they better win at least one of the next two at Washington, at Philly, if not both of them, if they want to have a chance. They don't have, in my opinion, the players that Cincinnati has, where Cincinnati might be able to resurrect their season, right?
Right.
So this has to happen starting next week at Washington if they want to have any chance of being a playoff team, in my opinion, this year.
Yeah, I don't know right now if 10 is going to do it, but I think we can kind of go there. I mean, here they are again. They've got, and again, when you say it this way, Ken, so 1-3, so there's 13 games left, right?
Yeah.
Got to win 9 of them to get
9-4.
to get to 10.
Yeah, go 9-4 the rest of the way.
Ah, Lord, that doesn't sound good at all.
And you haven't even played Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, or Baltimore yet. So
the 6 of the games are against those 3 teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So this ain't gonna be easy. We'll see if they can do it, and we'll be here on R&R, Kenny, to break it down and telling the truth about things, right?
Like we always do, Michael. And also, we're not going to dive into it with the Guardians. Congratulations. They finished with the second best record. They'll be the number 2 seed in the American League. We don't know who they're going to play. That'll be determined, in the wild card. We do know game 1 is Saturday, October 5th at Progressive Field. Game 2 is Monday, October 7th at Progressive Field. So once they get into the playoffs, we'll dive into that a little more. And Michael, as we finish up tonight on a Sunday night, I'm going to be up bright and early tomorrow as I head to Cleveland Cavaliers Media Day.
Whoa,
okay. That's getting rolling as well. So once that does, start happening, we'll dive into the Cavaliers preseason and take a look at what we think, Kenny Atkinson's
new
team,
head coach.
is going to look like this year. So we got a lot to tackle over the next, 3-4 months here on R&R.
Yeah, we do look forward to it, buddy, and always enjoy it, and look forward to seeing what the start of really important football brings for the Browns when we get together next Sunday.
Always a pleasure, Reg, and thanks once again to our producer, Ty Cordts, who makes sure all of this gets to you. And please subscribe at Press Play Podcast Networks so you'll know when we have new podcasts that are coming up. You'll get notifications, or you can just ask your smart device to play the R&R podcast. And that way, whenever we have a lot to say, which is always, you'll be right there with us as we break it all down for you here on the Reghi and Roda podcast.